Valerian maintained her support, continuously layering minor buffs and defenses around her companions, calmly observing and adjusting with elegant composure. Yet even with their well-coordinated teamwork, the three remained unable to deliver a decisive blow. The armored general, though hampered, retained a terrifying durability and strength, his dark aura pulsating with fierce power. Each time they pressed him, he responded with devastating counterattacks, forcing them back into careful defense. Elias's expression darkened, his breathing growing labored. "We can't continue like this. His armor's resistance to magic is far stronger than anticipated." "We must find an opening," Kale said, voice tight but steady, eyes fixed firmly on the general. "Valera, we'll need your strongest defensive spell." "Elias, compress gravity into his armor's joints precisely as I strike. We may yet break him." Valera's face grew solemn but determined. "Understood. I'll do my utmost." Elias nodded slowly, regaining his composure. "Then prepare. We only get one chance." The three of them steeled themselves once more, their coordination tightening as their strategy crystallized clearly in their minds. Around them, the chaotic sounds of battle raged unchecked, yet the trio's focus narrowed sharply, their hearts set solely upon their formidable enemy, readying themselves for the decisive moment that would determine victory or defeat. The battle raged with furious intensity around Orion. Dust and debris swirled chaotically, magical explosions thundered in the distance, and the cries of warriors echoed hauntingly across the devastated plain. But Orion's attention remained locked onto the general facing him, each clash of their weapons reverberating with titanic force. Now standing as a towering dragonoid, Orion swung his enlarged realm guardian sword alongside a massive dark silver blade, each strike exploding with fiery arcs and raw power. His crimson-golden scales gleamed menacingly beneath the sunlight, wings spread wide, casting a formidable shadow. The general met his attacks head-on, twin axes spinning ferociously as he matched every blow with precise, ruthless efficiency. With every exchange, their colliding auras sent shockwaves rippling outward, forcing nearby warriors to scramble desperately out of their path. Orion knew this stalemate could not continue. He needed a decisive advantage. With a swift decision, he drew forth a gleaming red scroll from his inventory, the Tier 9 Crimson Ray rune scroll he had gotten from the draws for such a dire moment. The scroll pulsed softly with potent mana, its fiery energy radiating with overwhelming intensity. Just as Orion prepared to activate it, a sudden urgent voice echoed sharply within his consciousness. "Warning! Higher law hostility detected. Degree. Startled, Orion halted immediately, confusion flickering across his draconic features. "Lumi? What's happening?" Lumi's normally cheerful voice came urgently, edged with genuine panic. "Master, wait. That rune scroll, it's beyond Tier 7. The world laws here won't permit such high-level power. Activating it could trigger catastrophic backlash, even destroying this entire realm." Orion's eyes widened in alarm, and without hesitation, he swiftly stowed the dangerous rune away. The implications left him shaken, he had nearly caused unimaginable destruction. Observing Orion's hesitation, the general facing him smirked knowingly, his crimson eyes filled with arrogant amusement. "Oh? Did you think we didn't carry our own high-level attack rune scrolls?" he sneered mockingly. "Unfortunately, unlike you, we know better than to court annihilation." Orion's brow furrowed deeply, his heart pounding as frustration surged within him. His strongest trump card had just been rendered unusable. Gritting his teeth, Orion swiftly refocused, assessing his options. At that very moment, Orion caught sight of Sylvia fighting fiercely nearby, her sword humming loudly as a dense, potent aura radiated from the blade. It was the unmistakable power of intermediate sword aura, sharp, pure, utterly devastating in its simplicity. Sylvia's blade moved swiftly, each strike carrying an almost transcendent force, capable of cutting through even the strongest armor with ease. Inspiration surged through Orion. He had long struggled with dual-wielding different sword auras simultaneously. Now, observing Sylvia's brilliant display, clarity dawned within him. Taking a deep, steadying breath, he murmured resolutely to himself, if mastering dual sword auras simultaneously is too challenging at this stage, then I'll first master intermediate fire sword aura thoroughly. As he spoke, Orion's aura intensified dramatically. Flames erupted fiercely along his realm guardian sword, roaring vividly, his fire sword aura sharpening visibly as it reached its maximum output. Each strike he unleashed now carried an undeniable ferocity, each swing infused with relentless, burning aura. The enemy general immediately sensed the shift in Orion's combat approach, frowning deeply as he struggled to match this new intensity. Every fiery slash seemed to contain more weight, more oppressive heat, forcing the general into desperate defensive maneuvers. Sweat began to form upon his forehead as his arrogant confidence faltered. "Don't think such a minor improvement will change anything," the general snarled, desperation creeping into his voice. His axes blurred, shadows writhing furiously around him, as he fought with increasingly reckless abandon. Orion knew this was his opportunity. He gathered his mana, reaching deep within his bloodline, and unleashed his dragon's might without reservation. A terrifying, oppressive pressure exploded outward, radiating across the battlefield in suffocating waves. Every nearby combatant momentarily froze, the enemy generals especially staggering under the sheer weight of Orion's draconic dominance. The general before him visibly trembled, eyes widening in shock, his aura momentarily subdued. But Orion's display of power did not go unnoticed. Far behind the chaotic front lines, upon the dark war chariot, the anomaly, calmly seated atop his obsidian throne, finally shifted his attention. His pale, cold eyes narrowed slightly, fixated upon Orion's formidable draconic form. A chilling smile spread slowly across the anomaly's lips as he gave out an order, "Gravis, bring me that lizard alive. He appears to be some kind of mutated dragon, valuable research material indeed." Hearing this, Orion's eyes flashed sharply, a mix of anger and apprehension surging within him as the dragon's instincts amplified his emotions. Even after revealing his full dragon's might, the enemy leader had barely stirred from his throne, regarding Orion merely as a specimen rather than a threat. This revelation only fueled Orion's determination further. He calmed himself, sensing the escalating threat from the enemy general whose sinister smirk widened with every passing second. With a decisive surge of determination, Orion channeled fiery mana into both swords, coating them in roaring flames that intensified his already oppressive aura. His crimson-golden scales shimmered brightly under the blazing radiance of his elementary-grade fire sword aura. "Come," Orion growled deeply, his draconic voice rumbling powerfully, "I'll burn through your arrogance." The general's expression tightened, recognizing Orion's steadily growing strength. The air between them shimmered with heat as Orion lunged forward. His dual blades, cloaked in vibrant flames, descended in an explosive dance, carving arcs of molten fury. Each strike resonated with precise, refined intent, forcing the enemy backward step by step. Initially confident, the general's crimson eyes began to darken with irritation as he was steadily pushed back by Orion's relentless assault. The flame scorching his axes began to char his once untouchable confidence. "You force my hand, dragonling," snarled the general, his voice seething with anger. He swiftly drew a scarlet pill from his armor, swallowing it without hesitation. His body trembled violently as an enormous surge of corrupted, crimson energy erupted from within, enveloping him in a sinister aura. His muscles swelled, veins bulging grotesquely beneath his pale, luminescent skin, and his teeth became larger. Instantly, the tide of battle shifted again. With terrifying speed and strength, the general charged, axes cleaving downward with ruthless precision. Orion's fierce offense abruptly became a desperate defense. Each block sent harsh vibrations through his bones, forcing him into a frantic retreat. Sweat dripped from his scales, his breathing heavy under the overwhelming pressure. "This strength is unnatural," Orion thought under pressure, his dual-colored eyes flickering with urgency. Each moment of resistance drained his stamina, the unrelenting onslaught testing every ounce of his physical and mental resilience. Then, in that critical moment of extreme pressure, a profound realization clicked within Orion's consciousness. The elementary-grade fire sword aura he had grasped long ago now felt more tangible, more controllable, each fiery strike sharpened by pure, unwavering clarity as he realized he had stepped into the realm of intermediate-grade fire sword aura. Yet Orion knew he couldn't remain limited. Drawing in a deep breath, he deactivated the fiery aura abruptly. His blades instantly ceased their blazing inferno, startling the general slightly. With a surge of resolution, Orion ignited his swords once more, this time crackling fiercely with raw thunderous energy. Around him, his friends fighting their own battles momentarily glanced in astonishment. "Thunder sword aura?" Sylvia exclaimed breathlessly, disbelief clear in her voice, yet she quickly refocused on her enemy. Arya's violet eyes widened momentarily, shocked by Orion's hidden element. But the fierce onslaught from the enemy general left no space for further distraction. The enemy general quickly recovered, his gaze now emotionless, intent on suppressing Orion before he could fully comprehend this new element. He lunged forward, axes slicing through the air with terrifying momentum. Each strike sent jolts of shadowy crimson mana through Orion's defenses, attempting to crush his resistance. Yet amid this relentless pressure, Orion's comprehension surged forward exponentially. His thunder-infused swords began to hum distinctly, lightning crackling with intensifying brilliance. Each parry refined his understanding, each strike deepened his connection to the thunder element. Finally, with an electrifying crack, Orion's blades burst forth with intermediate-grade thunder sword aura, dazzling bolts leaping violently from the blade's edges. Seeing this, the enemy general momentarily stepped back, incredulity flashing briefly in his otherwise emotionless eyes. But determination quickly overtook him. Gathering his full enhanced strength, he lunged forward again, axes poised to crush Orion utterly. But Orion's gaze hardened with unwavering resolve. "It's now or never," he thought urgently. Drawing deeply on every ounce of his mental strength, he focused sharply, forcing his very being to the brink. His left sword ignited into blazing flames once more, while simultaneously, his right sword crackled violently with raging lightning. A surge of overwhelming strain coursed through his body as he attempted the seemingly impossible task of simultaneously wielding two distinct sword auras, fire and thunder, each on a separate blade. Every fiber of his being screamed in danger, muscles aching, bones creaking under the immense mental and physical toll. His vision blurred briefly under the extreme burden, yet his willpower blazed fiercely, pushing through the pain and resistance. The enemy general, recognizing the dire threat Orion posed, lunged forward swiftly, his axes aimed directly at Orion's vulnerable form. But in that critical instant, a dazzling, pure beam of radiant light shot forth from Arya's staff, slamming heavily into the general's chest and forcing him stumbling backward. "Now, brother Orion!" Arya's gentle yet firm voice called urgently, her violet eyes sparkling with faith and hope. Taking advantage of the fleeting respite, Orion roared mightily, his thunderous draconic voice shaking the very air around them. With an incredible burst of willpower, he stabilized both sword auras simultaneously, fire blazing fiercely on one blade, thunder crackling explosively on the other. The battlefield momentarily fell into stunned silence, friend and foe alike witnessing the birth of a remarkable dual sword aura mastery. Sylvia, NYSS, Elias, Philyra, Emilia, and Kale felt their morale surge upon witnessing Orion's groundbreaking accomplishment. Even the general facing Orion could not hide his astonishment, his crimson eyes widening sharply beneath his hood as the realization struck. Impossible, two intermediate auras at once? Orion, his heart pounding fiercely, chest heaving from exertion, fixed his opponent with a calm gaze, his swords pulsing powerfully with two distinctly mastered elemental auras. "Impossible for mere mongrels like you, yes." Orion growled, eyes glowing fiercely with draconic arrogance. "Let me show you what true mastery looks like." Orion surged forward, his massive dragonoid form radiating overwhelming dominance, his twin swords blazing fiercely, one wrapped in roaring flames, the other crackling with destructive thunder. The sky above the battlefield darkened ominously, as if reacting to the immense energy unleashed below. The enemy general matched Orion's relentless assault, each swing of his corrupted axes releasing waves of chaotic crimson and shadow energy. Their clash was cataclysmic, sending shockwaves rippling outward, shaking the earth beneath and shattering the air itself. Sparks exploded violently with each collision, arcs of fire and lightning intertwining and radiating outward in a dazzling display. Neither warrior noticed as tiny fissures silently appeared mid-air around them, subtle cracks spreading slowly through the very fabric of space itself. Far away, beyond the battlefield, similar fissures emerged quietly, yet no one present on the chaotic battlefield could spare a glance, locked in their own desperate struggles for survival. High upon his obsidian throne, the anomaly's pale eyes narrowed, sensing the faint disturbances rippling throughout the world. He softly whispered, his cold voice tinged with mild curiosity and faint anticipation, "Is the time for this world coming to an end?" Back at the epicenter, Orion and the enemy general were so deeply entrenched in their battle that neither noticed they had gradually begun to ascend, their feet leaving the devastated ground below. Both warriors now hovered above the battlefield, suspended by sheer power, a signature mark of reaching the 6th level of the awakening realm, though their strength clearly surpassed even that benchmark. Trading blows ferociously, Orion's swords whirled with deadly precision, simultaneously wielding intermediate-grade sword auras of fire and thunder. His mastery over both elements intensified with each passing second. Each fiery slash carried searing heat, melting away corrupted shadows, while each thunder-infused strike violently shattered the general's defenses. The enemy general fought desperately, axes swirling wildly, yet Orion's dual sword auras granted him an undeniable advantage. Their aerial battle grew more savage and relentless, the air around them trembling, violently distorting under the strain of their unleashed energies. Finally, spotting a slight lapse in his opponent's guard, Orion lunged forward decisively. His fiery blade burned through the general's defenses, leaving a severe scorching slash across his torso. Before the general could regain balance, Orion unleashed a thunderous blow, sending him plummeting toward the battlefield below like a blazing meteor. The impact shattered the ground in an explosive crater, dust billowing outward. Yet before Orion could breathe a sigh of relief, his sharp eyes caught a terrifying sight. Rising unsteadily from the debris, the general suddenly grabbed a nearby wounded tigerkin soldier by the throat, eyes glinting maliciously. Without hesitation, he sank elongated fangs into the soldier's neck, drinking hungrily of his victim's blood. Orion's heart skipped a beat, realization hitting him instantly. A vampire, he thought, shock and alarm surging through him. A sense of urgency filled him, he couldn't afford to let the enemy general restore his strength. Roaring furiously, Orion dove toward the ground, wings folded tightly, accelerating rapidly. Crashing into the general before he could fully regain his strength, Orion unleashed a ferocious barrage of fiery and thunderous blows. With every strike, the vampire general staggered back, the unnatural strength from his crimson pill slowly fading away. "You've relied on borrowed power long enough," Orion growled, his voice rumbling deeply, powerful and resolute. "It's time you fall." The general, eyes wide with panic and fury, snarled defiantly, but his movements slowed, growing sluggish and desperate. Orion pressed his advantage relentlessly, each blow pushing him deeper into submission, his swords humming loudly, resonating with triumph and mastery. Around them, the chaotic battle raged onward, yet the sight of Orion subduing one of the enemy's strongest generals ignited a spark of hope and resolve within his companions. Arya, Sylvia, Nyss, Elias, Philyra, Emilia, and Kale continued their fierce battles with renewed determination, inspired by Orion's awe-inspiring display of dual elemental mastery. His oppressive presence and unwavering resolve finally crushed the general's resistance. Now visibly drained, the vampire general fell to his knees, gasping weakly, crimson eyes dimming with exhaustion and disbelief. Orion's chest heaved as he towered over the weakened general, twin blades burning with the brilliance of fire and thunder. Around him, the chaos of battle still raged, yet the tide had noticeably shifted. His comrades had also begun gaining the upper hand in their own fierce duels. Even the normal tigerkin fought vigorously after seeing Orion dominating his opponent. His eyes briefly scanned the battlefield, noting with satisfaction the grim but determined expressions of Arya, Sylvia, Nyss, Emilia, Elias, Philyra, and Kale, who had each begun pushing their opponents back. Nearby, a duke had decisively killed one of the Lionkin generals, quickly turning to aid his allies with fierce intensity. Even so, Orion's brow furrowed deeply when his gaze settled on the 5 warriors from the Thunder Peak Kingdom. Though powerful and skilled, their coordination had faltered under the sheer overwhelming might of their 3 opponents. Their formation had begun to fracture, their movements increasingly desperate, clearly fighting just to survive rather than achieve victory. Orion's jaw tightened. This battle had dragged on too long. He needed to end it swiftly, decisively. His towering dragonoid form advanced slowly, each heavy step echoing ominously as he approached the fallen general. The vampire general's crimson eyes looked up at Orion with a mixture of fury, disbelief, and grim resignation. His once arrogant posture had utterly collapsed, now replaced with the humiliated resignation of defeat. "It's over," Orion growled deeply, his voice resonating with finality. He lifted his sword, its fiery aura blazing brightly, preparing to deliver the final strike. But at that precise moment, Orion's vision suddenly blurred, reality twisting violently before him. A chill raced down his spine, his draconic instinct screaming at him, but it was too late to react. In a terrifying instant, the anomaly appeared directly before Orion, his movements too swift for even Orion's heightened perception. With an effortless grace that belied his deadly power, the anomaly struck forward, his leg slamming brutally into Orion's chest. A shockwave exploded from the collision, and Orion felt himself hurtled backward, crashing violently into the devastated earth below, gouging a deep trench as his colossal body slid through the battlefield. A hush of disbelief and fear momentarily settled across the battlefield as both armies slowed, stunned by the sudden display of unimaginable strength. The anomaly stood serenely above the fallen general, his pale, luminescent features exuding an eerie calm. Turning slowly, he gazed down at the kneeling vampire general with quiet disdain. "You are truly useless," he spoke softly, voice laced with cold disappointment. "You can't even defeat someone whose cultivation is clearly lower than yours. At least your fellow generals have the excuse of facing multiple adversaries simultaneously." The defeated general lowered his head further, his body trembling slightly, whether from humiliation or fear was unclear. The anomaly sighed softly, elegantly flicking his cloak aside as he straightened. Behind him, the remaining generals disengaged immediately from their battles, swiftly retreating to regroup at their master's side. Their movements were disciplined, yet each general appeared exhausted, clearly relieved to receive respite from their individual struggles. Simultaneously, Orion groaned softly, pushing himself painfully to his feet, his draconic scales glistening with blood and dust. His friends quickly converged upon him, Arya immediately stepping forward, her staff already glowing softly with healing light. "Brother Orion, are you all right?" Arya asked urgently, eyes filled with concern. Orion nodded slowly, his eyes locked firmly onto the anomaly, whose cold, amused gaze met his own. "Be careful," Orion murmured gravely, never breaking eye contact. "That bastard's strength is unfathomable." The rest of the group tightened their formation around Orion, each prepared for whatever confrontation might follow. But then, suddenly, the very skies above trembled violently, dark clouds swirling chaotically as the air crackled with mysterious energy. Everyone paused momentarily, gazing upward in awe and confusion. In the next instant, vibrant fissures ripped open above, forming brilliant, swirling portals that led back to the respective worlds of the otherworlders. Across the battlefield, warriors from various worlds stared at these passages with shock and desperate hope. Almost instantly, many foreign warriors broke formation, abandoning their fights and rushing toward these newly opened paths home. Fear overtook valor, survival instinct overriding their moral duty. Panic and relief drove many to flee, abandoning the conflict entirely. Orion's group, however, remained steadfast, their expressions conflicted yet resolute. Orion himself stepped forward once more, his stance firm, twin swords held steady despite his lingering injuries. His dual-colored eyes were fixed sharply upon the anomaly, silently declaring his intention to remain and confront the threat. Amused, the anomaly smiled gently, inclining his head toward Orion with a strangely graceful gesture. "I must commend you on your remarkable strength, Dragonling. Allow me to properly introduce myself," he spoke calmly, elegantly, his voice carrying clearly across the silence that had briefly overtaken the battlefield. "I am Valerian von Erebus, leader of the Sanguisnoctum clan," he announced, his voice dripping with sophisticated menace. "You may consider this an honor, very few mortals have lived to hear my name." His cold eyes twinkled with curiosity and superiority as he looked at Orion and his friends. "I see you and your companions have chosen defiance over survival. Admirable, yet ultimately futile." Orion took a deep breath, forcibly calming the draconic fury rising within his blood, the subtle mocking of the vampire leader cutting deeply into his pride. He stepped forward further, his voice rumbling strongly, echoing clearly across the silent battlefield. "You might be the most powerful foe I've faced till now, but you are not yet at the level where I'll have to run away." Valerian's smile grew wider, his pale features illuminated by the eerie, crimson glow of the chaotic battlefield. Calmly, almost leisurely, he extended his right hand. From thin air, shadows gathered swiftly into his palm, materializing into a sinister weapon, a curved scythe, its blade gleaming darkly beneath the oppressive, storm-choked sky. The handle of the scythe was linked by a chain of blackened steel, rattling softly as it swayed gently in his grasp. "Such confidence," Valerian said softly, his voice filled with an aristocratic charm, laced with subtle mockery. His eyes sparkled with excitement and barely contained menace as he twirled the scythe lightly, shadows dancing gracefully around its edge. "Why don't you try and see for yourself how futile your attempts truly are?" Without waiting for a response, Valerian's movements blurred, the scythe spinning faster than eyes could track. It slashed in a massive, sweeping arc, one so vast and powerful that it seemed to momentarily cleave through reality itself. Orion's eyes widened in horror as he realized Valerian's true intention. He moved too late. The scythe's dark blade effortlessly carved through ranks of soldiers, utterly indifferent to friend or foe. A sea of lionkin and tigerkin fell simultaneously, bodies crumpling lifelessly, thousands instantly silenced. The battlefield fell into stunned stillness, disbelief and fear gripping every surviving warrior's heart. "Monster!" Arya whispered softly, her violet eyes wide with shock and grief. Orion's expression darkened, fury blazing fiercely within his draconic eyes. His grip tightened furiously around his dual swords, the pulsing auras of fire and thunder intensifying sharply. "How dare you!" he roared, voice echoing with a powerful resonance, shaking the very air around them. Valerian turned back leisurely, seemingly unmoved by the carnage he'd just wrought, his pale face carrying a gentle smile devoid of remorse. "Did that anger you? Good. Channel that rage and perhaps you'll entertain me," he said calmly, beckoning mockingly with a gentle curl of his fingers. Just as Orion prepared to launch forward, an immense tremor shook the very fabric of space around them. A deep, resonant hum filled the battlefield, vibrating in every warrior's chest, forcing everyone to look skyward. From above, space itself tore open violently, as if reality could no longer contain the strain of such powerful combatants. Through the rift emerged a towering shape, incomprehensible in scale. It extended downward slowly, dark and ancient, etched with incomprehensible runes glowing softly with celestial light. "What is that?" NYSS murmured, her normally composed voice laced with awe and a touch of unease. Orion's eyes widened sharply as realization dawned, a chill running down his spine. "That's no tower. It's a staff," he breathed, astonishment evident in his voice. Indeed, the massive structure that had appeared was undeniably a staff, a celestial object of unimaginable scale, seemingly larger than mountains, descending gradually from a cosmic realm. However, the staff carried with itself some truly strong spatial storms, enough to destroy anyone who dared to come close. Spatial storms were strong in the surrounding of the structure. Its sheer size dwarfed entire cities, its appearance filling all who witnessed it with an instinctive sense of insignificance and reverence. Valerian turned toward the enormous staff, his eyes alight with genuine excitement and fierce ambition. Finally, he whispered fervently, a rare passion bleeding through his composed facade. "It's starting to appear, just need to wait for the spatial storms to calm down. And this time, no one will stop me from obtaining it." Sensing an opportunity, Orion immediately lunged forward, his massive wings propelling him toward Valerian with blazing speed, his blades roaring furiously with their dual elemental might. "Don't let him get that staff," Orion commanded powerfully, prompting his companions to follow suit without hesitation. Arya, Emilia, Sylvia, NYSS, Philyra, Elias, and Kale charged forward together, united by their determination to stop Valerian. However, at that critical juncture, the 5 warriors from the Thunder Peak Kingdom exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions filled with hesitation and realization. The female among them shook her head slowly, regret evident in her eyes. "This battle, it's beyond us now," she murmured softly, looking at her companions. "If we stay, we'll only die meaningless deaths." One of the men grimaced but nodded reluctantly. "Agreed. We must leave. We're not their match." Quietly, regretfully, the 5 warriors retreated swiftly, stepping into the shimmering portal that would return them safely to their homeland. Their departure left Orion's group alone to face Valerian and his monstrous strength. Valerian noticed their departure, amused contempt flickering momentarily across his expression. He raised his chained scythe effortlessly, spinning it lazily as Orion's group swiftly approached. "Cowards survive, heroes perish. I wonder which fate you've chosen," he mocked softly, eyes fixated on Orion. Orion didn't bother to respond to his taunt, instead roaring furiously as he swung both swords simultaneously, sending waves of fire and lightning hurtling toward Valerian. But Valerian merely laughed softly, a sound filled with dark amusement. He spun his chained scythe rapidly, effortlessly deflecting Orion's attack, then flicked his wrist casually, the black chain whipping around with impossible precision, forcing the rest of Orion's companions to scatter desperately to evade the lethal arc. Sylvia surged forward from the side, wind swirling furiously around her blade. "Die," she shouted defiantly, slicing sharply with intermediate-grade sword intent. Yet, Valerian moved smoothly, blocking effortlessly with a small smirk of amusement. NYSS attacked simultaneously from the shadows, her scythe infused heavily with thunderous energy. But Valerian sidestepped gracefully, smoothly dodging the strike, casually kicking NYSS backward, sending her crashing painfully into the rubble. Elias summoned crushing gravity around Valerian, Philyra reinforcing him with numerous vines attempting to entangle him. Yet Valerian barely appeared bothered, easily breaking free from their bindings, ignoring the oppressive gravitational force altogether. Emilia's spear crackled violently as she thrust forward alongside Kale's wind-imbued longsword, yet their coordinated assault ended abruptly as Valerian simply flicked his scythe, deflecting their blows with barely a hint of effort. Arya desperately chanted, powerful bolts of thunder and holy light surging toward Valerian. But he waved his hand dismissively, shattering Arya's spells effortlessly with a bored expression. Orion growled furiously, pushing himself to the limit. His body strained under the immense pressure of dual intermediate sword auras, yet Valerian appeared entirely unfazed, easily matching Orion's immense strength with his own terrifyingly casual counterattacks. "Impressive," Valerian said calmly, his elegant voice carrying clearly above the chaotic battle. "For mortals, you display remarkable talent. However, talent alone cannot close the gap between ants and gods." Orion gritted his teeth, breathing heavily, every muscle burning fiercely with exhaustion. Despite giving everything, he had yet to leave even a scratch on Valerian's calm, perfect visage. The chaotic battlefield was drowned in the echoes of explosions, desperate cries, and the clashing of steel against steel, yet all eyes inevitably returned to the figure of Valerian. Standing confidently amidst the carnage, his dark scythe spinning effortlessly, the vampire lord wore a faint, mocking smile, utterly unbothered by the desperate assaults of Orion and his companions. Orion surged forward again, roaring defiantly as he launched twin elemental sword waves, one blazing with intense fire, the other surging violently with thunder. But Valerian merely sidestepped with elegant ease, the destructive energy waves dissipating harmlessly into the distance behind him. Orion gritted his teeth in frustration, chest heaving heavily with exhaustion, each strike draining him further. He refused to show weakness, but a grim realization began to gnaw at the edge of his consciousness. Is he truly unbeatable? He wondered silently, his dragon blood boiling furiously, angrily urging him to fight on. Every muscle burned, yet Orion stood resolutely, swords glowing fiercely as he prepared another strike. Arya's staff glowed brightly, light and thunder swirling around her as she channeled her most powerful spells, unleashing relentless barrages of lightning bolts toward Valerian. Each devastating strike, capable of obliterating dozens of warriors at once, was calmly deflected by the vampire's scythe, an infuriatingly gentle flick all it took to nullify Arya's desperate attacks. "Keep attacking," Arya shouted bravely, despite exhaustion clearly evident in her trembling voice. Her determination sparked courage among her friends. Emilia, Sylvia, and Kale rushed in close formation, coordinating their strikes from multiple directions simultaneously. Spear, swords, wind, and thunder weaved intricately, a beautiful but deadly combo, yet Valerian merely chuckled lightly, effortlessly stepping between their attacks, gracefully avoiding blows that missed him by mere millimeters. His scythe spun casually in his grasp, occasionally lashing out to repel their furious charges. Elias and Philyra combined their abilities desperately, gravity pressing down to slow Valerian's movements, while countless vines burst from the ground, attempting to bind and immobilize him. Yet every attempt ended the same. Valerian casually shattered their spells, the tremendous effort they put forth seeming like nothing more than an amusing diversion to him. NYSS materialized from shadows, her scythe poised to strike from behind. "Die," she hissed sharply, eyes cold with killing intent. Yet Valerian simply smiled softly, his dark eyes meeting hers as he pivoted. Orion seethed, frustration bubbling furiously inside his chest. His grip on his blades tightened fiercely, knuckles whitening as he strained under the immense burden of his dual sword auras. Sweat dripped from his scales, breath labored and burning painfully in his lungs. He knew he was reaching his limit. Yet he couldn't surrender. Not yet. Before Orion could strike again, a powerful presence erupted suddenly from the distance, an aura so intense it forced everyone to freeze momentarily. Eyes turned swiftly as a golden figure descended onto the battlefield. The aged Tigerkin King, his golden robes billowing furiously in the chaotic wind, landed gracefully, standing face to face with Valerian. His old, scarred features were calm yet determined, his presence radiating unwavering authority and resolve. Valerian's playful demeanor faded slightly as he looked at the Tigerkin King with genuine interest. "You still haven't given up, Valerian's voice was almost gentle, softly laced with bemusement and respect. "You're courageous, old friend, but you're still too young to compete with me." The Tigerkin King met Valerian's gaze unflinchingly, his aged amber eyes firm with quiet dignity. "Matters little," he replied calmly, voice resonating with quiet finality. "I've already decided. This battle shall be my last, and thus I'll give it my all." Without further hesitation, the Tigerkin King closed his eyes briefly, taking one final, deep breath. An instant later, his eyes snapped open, blazing fiercely with overwhelming determination. His powerful body trembled violently as a terrifying surge of energy erupted from within him. His mana combusted explosively, every pore of his body radiating blinding golden brilliance. Space itself around him cracked and fractured, fissures spreading rapidly in every direction as the entire battlefield trembled violently beneath his overwhelming aura. Valerian's expression instantly shifted to seriousness, eyes narrowing sharply, recognizing the real threat before him. He lifted his chained scythe cautiously, its dark blade humming ominously with condensed shadow energy. Orion and his companions gathered quickly, retreating a few steps, eyes wide with astonishment and awe at the Tigerkin King's display of terrifying power. "Is he combusting his own mana?" Arya murmured, awestruck, barely able to comprehend the enormity of what she witnessed. "Yes," Kale replied grimly, recognizing the desperate, ultimate technique immediately. "This is a forbidden technique, a suicidal last stand. His body won't survive it." Orion's fists clenched, eyes locked firmly onto the two powerful figures preparing to clash. His heart felt heavy, fully aware of the finality of the Tigerkin King's decision. He knew the king was prepared to die, to sacrifice everything, to buy them time and perhaps the faintest chance at victory. Yet, even now, the situation felt hopelessly grim. Orion looked at his exhausted friends, battered and worn down from battle, and felt his resolve tested. He briefly considered ordering a retreat through the portals. After all, surviving to fight another day seemed wise. But he hesitated, his gaze returning to the Tiger King, whose blazing golden aura shone brightly, defiant against the encroaching darkness. Orion steeled himself. No matter how bleak, he wanted to witness such an apex battle and to show his respect to the immense sacrifice about to be made. The Tiger King roared defiantly, his golden figure erupting forward like a blazing comet, the sheer speed fracturing space further as he clashed fiercely against Valerian. Their impact shattered the battlefield beneath them, generating devastating shockwaves radiating outward, ripping massive fissures open across the terrain, scattering soldiers like leaves in a hurricane. Valerian fought seriously now, scythe whirling dangerously as he matched the Tiger King's explosive strikes blow for blow. The world itself seemed to shudder and groan beneath their apocalyptic duel, their power surpassing all mortal limits. Is this what power at the peak of this world looks like? Sylvia murmured in disbelief, struggling to keep her balance amidst the violent tremors shaking the battlefield. Orion's expression hardened further, his dual-colored eyes filled with respect and sadness. Yes, he said gravely. This is the price of standing at the peak. Valerian's calm demeanor finally fractured slightly, his eyes narrowed with intense concentration as he struggled against the Tiger King's overwhelming attacks. The battlefield quaked violently under the explosive collisions of the two apex beings. The Tiger King's blazing aura raged brilliantly, its golden brilliance illuminating the battlefield, contrasting sharply against Valerian's sinister crimson aura. Each clash between them cracked the air itself, sending devastating shockwaves rippling across the land. Orion watched in fascination, unable to tear his gaze from the fierce struggle unfolding before him. The sheer power the Tiger King wielded made Orion feel powerless, despite his recent breakthroughs. Yet, even at this incredible peak, the Tiger King's mana was rapidly combusting, his life burning away with every passing moment. Valerian's scythe danced fluidly, shadow and blood-red energy weaving intricate patterns around him, parrying and counterattacking with lethal precision. He had stopped underestimating the Tiger King, his playful demeanor replaced by genuine seriousness. "You've impressed me, old friend," Valerian called out, his voice smooth yet edged with sincerity, barely audible above the storm of their attacks. "To push me this far, truly worthy of your throne." The Tiger King didn't reply immediately, his amber eyes blazing fiercely as he delivered another explosive strike. Valerian parried, yet this blow forced him backward, his feet sliding across the shattered ground. The king exhaled heavily, sweat and blood mingling on his battle-weary face, yet determination burned strongly in his gaze. Orion clenched his fists, his heart tightening painfully at the sight of the proud king fighting so valiantly, knowing he would soon fall. He had never felt such respect and sadness simultaneously. The sheer sacrifice unfolding before his eyes etched itself permanently into his memory. Then, subtly yet unmistakably, the king's explosive aura dimmed slightly. His strikes, though still powerful, began to slow. Valerian immediately sensed this shift, a cold smirk forming at the corners of his lips. "Ah," Valerian remarked softly, almost regretfully. "Your time is coming to an end, old friend. It seems this is truly your limit." The Tiger King roared defiantly, knowing this was his final moment. "If I must perish, I'll drag you into oblivion with me." He drew every remaining fragment of mana within himself, compressing it desperately into his final attack. Golden flames erupted violently around him, the sheer density causing reality itself to fracture. With a final roar, he surged forward, becoming a blazing meteor of unstoppable power. Valerian watched calmly, the red aura around his scythe intensifying into a dense, blood-red glow. His eyes hardened as he raised his weapon and calmly slashed forward. The clash was instantaneous and decisive. Valerian's scythe effortlessly sliced through the king's golden blaze, cleanly bisecting the mana-charged attack. The crimson slash continued unhindered, a mercilessly precise stroke that cleaved straight through the Tiger King's body. Silence momentarily enveloped the battlefield. The king's eyes widened briefly, then dimmed, his body collapsing in two halves, lifeless before hitting the ravaged earth. The shockwave from the king's death surged outward, carrying with it sorrow and despair that washed over both armies. No! Duke Valerian shouted, horror and grief gripping his heart. His eyes locked onto the fallen king's body, disbelief etched deeply upon his draconic features. Valerian casually wiped his scythe, glancing toward Orion's group with mild amusement. Seeing Valerian's attention shift toward them, Orion immediately knew the battle was utterly lost. Everyone, run! Now! Orion roared urgently, his voice filled with urgency. His friends, hearts heavy yet understanding the gravity of the situation, immediately broke into a desperate sprint toward the swirling portals above. As the group desperately ascended toward their escape, Valerian turned slowly, his cold eyes narrowed with dangerous focus. The others can go, Valerian's smooth, chilling voice echoed clearly across the devastated battlefield. He raised a single, slender finger, pointed directly at Orion. But not you, little draconian. Valerian released a condensed beam of blood-red energy, the attack swift and lethal, cutting through the air with terrifying speed. Orion, at the rear of his group, felt imminent danger approaching and forced his exhausted body to move faster, his draconic wings propelling him urgently toward the shimmering portal. Arya, already inside, turned around desperately, her violet eyes wide with horror. Brother Orion! Hurry! Orion reached out, fingers mere inches from safety, when the crimson beam struck. It impacted the portal directly, causing